Something about a shoe and the form that really draws me in.
From a very early age, I was obsessed with shoes.
I became infatuated with finding the right shoe.
I remember my first ever pair of Jordans, begging my mum and dad to buy me these shoes. We bought them when we were in our caravan in Wales, but I wasn't allowed them until my birthday. Every time they went out, I'd run into the bedroom, I'd go under the bed, I'd get them out and I'd sniff them and then I'd put them back and go off again.
I had this kind of obsession from quite a young age with shoes. I would always save all my money to buy trainers.
Growing up, I was one of these strange teenagers in the 80s that really spent everything I earned on sneakers. The Adidas computer shoe.
Basketball shoes.
180s, Agassiz, all sorts of Nikes.
Nike Air Max 90, designed by Hiroshi Fujiwara, who's this amazing Japanese designer.
I was a big fan of Reebok and they had loads of really good models when we were young.
The Air Moab, just every detail about it.
School shoes, Rockports, pods, kickers, all this.
I had a shoe collection at one point. I think it was over 200 pairs, 250 pairs, which was just ridiculous. I mean, no one needs that many shoes.
Here are the thrill seekers.
Around Soho in London, there were loads of cool stores. The sneaker culture at that time, London was kind of leading the way. And there was a really cool store called Foot Patrol, and they would get Tier Zero launches from Nike. And then there was also a Stussy store that would get Nike exclusives, and there were some skate stores that would get Dunks. Early 2000s, that was when I discovered Bathing Ape. I'd seen the shoes on Pharrell Williams, on Jay-Z, on Kanye West, all these, amazing musicians. And I was like, where do you get those from? Saw a guy in Soho wearing Bape shoes. I followed him to the shop and I was like, wow, this is amazing. Went in, asked the price, £130, which back then was crazy money. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna just save until I can get a pair of these. Would go there periodically, became friends with the manager, who was a guy called Craig, and he actually thought I was much older than I was, because I had supreme taste. Got a job there as a Saturday boy, and then I turned into a Friday and a Thursday boy. So I worked there Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Really fell in love with design even more there. I loved sport forever. That was my thing as a kid, skating, surfing, tennis, rugby, all of it, give it to me. Left school at 16 and got a job working at Bathing Ape, worked my way up, and eventually I was managing Europe. And during that time, my love for sport was still there, but I kind of stopped doing the team sport thing. Needed another outlet, and that's when I started going to the gym. Then someone introduced me to CrossFit, and I absolutely fell in love with it. This brings the training side that I'm really enjoying with the competitive side. The person who'd introduced me to CrossFit, he said he was going to open an affiliate. And he said, oh, I need a business partner. And I was like, okay, I'll be a business partner. We opened in 2013. I kind of progressed quite quickly as an athlete, got to regionals. In 2014, handstand walking came up. And for some reason, I just could not acquire that skill. Placed last in the handstand walk, which is awful. But that fueled the fire to actively pursue getting to the CrossFit Games. And in 2014, competed alongside another British athlete called Stephen Fawcett. He started coaching me and doing all my programming. Stephen asked me to be part of his team in 2017. The goal there was to be the first all-British team to make it to the Games and to podium. Moved up to a place called Wigan, which is in northwest England, and stayed there for the whole season. And then we qualified for the Games in 2017. We were really strong favourites to make the podium. Our first event, we won, and we were like, whoa, this is crazy. Day 2, we just had an absolute shocker. And then we rallied on day 3 and managed to work our way back up and finished in the middle of the pack. When I got back to the UK, that was when I really started to question what I wanted to do next. Is there a way in which I could bring this training thing that I know pretty well and this other kind of footwear thing that I love? Could I merge those two things maybe that's the next step I'm going to go after, trying to make a footwear brand. Business people said, no, start with a t-shirt, see if you can demonstrate traction for the brand and then move on to shoes. I was like, fuck that. I'm going all in, I'm doing the hardest thing possible and we'll see what happens. I had to think about how I was going to fund it, and that was when I decided to sell the gym and go all in on R.A.D. The first step in creating R.A.D was creating the brand and really defining that. Brand is really nuanced and people don't give brand enough credit. Not our brand, any brand. I think ultimately the reason someone engages with a company is because of how the brand resonates with them. And it's always an emotional thing. I found a guy through a friend, and I met this guy called Tim. He's got like tattoos, loads of jewelry, short back and sides. He's wearing like this woolly jumper, like turtleneck, that was long, like went past his waist. And I was like, this guy is a bit odd, but let's chat to him.
We talked about brands, we talked about fashion, we talked about, design, we talked about like all of the things that we were both into. Like straight off the bat, we were just chatting, we were getting on, it was cool. We were speaking about what was missing in the industry we were talking about. I grew up in the Wirral, small town in Merseyside, just outside Liverpool. 90s kid for sure, yeah. I grew up with like rave culture. I also look back into like the whole Manchester thing. We were near all that sort of stuff going on. I'd done my degree in design. I had 5 agencies I loved here in London, and I sent my folio to the first one. It was bizarre. An hour and a half later, they said, do you want to come down for an interview? 2 days later, I was on the train to come to Waterloo. I have the interview and they offered me the job. I absolutely relished and embraced getting to London when I realised that anyone can do and be anything that they wanted. My skill set now is like this new age advertising, where if your advertising can grab attention, can be compelling and interesting, can it also like represent the vision, values and mission of your business as a brand?
I was envisaging him to be this kind of arsey, like know-it-all, snobby designer. And so I was nervous to kind of tell him my idea and my concept. I want to start this brand. He was like, what kind of brand? I was like, a footwear brand.
We got to build a brand, we got to have like a vision and an ethos in place. And he's the only person who's come to me with that approach. We just both very much connected and felt like there was room for what we thought needed to happen.
And then for the next 3 months, we just worked on the brand. And I would go into his office 2 or 3 times a week and just sit there and talk to him.
And he said, I've got a name and I'm a bit embarrassed to tell you. And I was like, go on. And he said, R.A.D. And my initial reaction was like, it's a bit, it's a bit of like an obvious sort of play on name. And then he went,
in its simplest form is Rally Against Destruction.
Oh, that dichotomy is cool. Like something so serious on one side, but then so down to earth on the other. And that idea of Rally Against Destruction started becoming more about what we generally believed in, which was rally against destruction of the mind, the body, and the planet.
Once we'd set that direction, we then set about trying to come up with a visual for what the footwear or the apparel might look like.
So Ben said, I'm going to come to the studio tomorrow, let's draw a shoe. And I'm sitting there thinking, what's he on about? He's not a shoe designer. I'm not a shoe designer. We talked about models and shapes and things we love, so I was thinking I'll make some sort of Frankenstein's monster where I'll pull the toe from this and the heel from this and the base from this. And he was like, move the heel in a bit like that and pull this out a bit like that and then move the toe around like that and then maybe we should add some mesh on there like that. And I was literally just doing what he was saying and thinking, this guy's mad. Where's this going to end up?
And then it was about, okay, right, fuck, what do we do now? Who's going to design this thing? Who's going to make it? And I'd always known Portland was the place that performance footwear was made. Brands that are here, you can Google them and you'll see they're all here. And so I kind of set my sights on finding someone in Portland. I stumbled across this post about the Jordan 23. In it was named a guy called Tom.
He's ex-head of the kitchen at, Nike. He's been at Adidas. He's been responsible for all these amazing shoes.
And then it mentioned that he'd recently left Nike and had a footwear consultancy. I was like, he's my fucking guy.
Ben emailed him and we literally got shunned.
Tumbleweed back. So I sent some more emails. I got more tumbleweed back.
I was like, okay, that's done. Probably 6 months later to the day, Ben's like...
I got a response from Tom. Hey, Ben, sounds really interesting. Sorry, I've taken a while to respond. I'm super busy. Try me in a few months. I was like, okay, fucking hell. Tried him in a few months. I got the same response. He was like, hey, Ben, hope it's going well. Good luck, I'm really busy. I was like, this guy's just mugging me off here. Tim, we need to make a deck and we're gonna fly to Portland and we're gonna get this guy in the mix.
I was like, sweet, let's go.
The hours of the office are 9 to 5. There's a really cool breakfast place next door. We'll get breakfast and then we'll just look out the window and see when he arrives.
We're sat there having a coffee over the road. Yeah, we can see the studio. It's really early in the morning.
And we were like, shit, he's not come yet. And I was like, well, let's just go and see and like just bang on the door. So we banged on the door. Hi, I'm Ben and this is Tim and we're from R.A.D. And he was like, do you want to come in? And we were like, yeah, we want to fucking come in.
What am I going to do? So I let these guys in. I was being inundated in that moment by all of these people telling me they had these great ideas for these startup sneaker companies, but there isn't a big brand thought in any of these things. I grew up in a small town of Worcester, Ohio, and my father was the design manager of Rubbermaid housewares, which was probably my introduction to design.
For every woman who's wondered where to store her microwave dishes, Rubbermaid makes a set that stores inside itself.
When I was about 15 years old, we had just 2 sporting goods stores, and they were right across the street from each other, Pierce's and Older Brothers. I went into the Older Brothers store, and I asked them, hey, what do you think about me having some sort of a job here? We don't hire, anybody who's not at least 16 or 17 years old. Well, if you don't hire me, I'm gonna go across the street to those guys and they're gonna hire me. Why would that be? I went across the whole shoe wall and I pointed to every running shoe and basketball shoe that was on the wall, told them exactly what the model was, what the technology was that was inside, and everything that I need. Okay, well, come back after school tomorrow, only after school, and you can help me unload the truck. It was about halfway through my time at the University of Cincinnati. The head of design at Nike met me at a design conference and invited me to come out to Beaverton, Oregon, and do a 6-month internship with the company. And I was working with Eric Avar and Aaron Cooper. These guys were like my mentors at the time, really, really, really wonderful designers. I got to design the outsole of one of the first Foamposite shoes, the first ever 3D printed, truly performance shoe. And then I was able to design the first truly modular performance shoe, Tennis Revive, WNBA signature athlete shoes, and all these kinds of things. It was interesting because I really didn't know that much about, say, the culture of basketball at the time, but I was so crazy about shoe design and I had studied it so much in that moment that I kind of fit right in on that team. Nike established an innovation department. It was called the Innovation Kitchen. The design director of that group came to me one afternoon and said, hey, we have 1 spot left open if maybe you're interested. Of course, I'm like, yeah, innovation, I'm there. Working closely with Tinker Hatfield and Mark Smith on the Jordan 23 was a really big moment for me. I left Nike, went to Adidas, where I was the design director of global basketball, and I was with Adidas for about 2 years. After I left Adidas, I opened my own consultancy called Kick Laboratory. My idea for that was that there were smaller brands that really wanted to combine design and innovation in the same way that a lot of the larger brands had been doing, but didn't necessarily have the resources to do it. We sit down in my presentation room and I put up on the screen this brand presentation, R.A.D, Rally Against Destruction.
It sort of looked a little bit like a shoe version of Sid's bedroom from Toy Story, and now there's just like bits of shoes just like sewn together everywhere.
It was quite awkward to begin with, but our theory was if we can keep talking and really show him we're serious, then he might take us seriously.
Big brand ideas about reaching out to this community and bringing all these consumers into R.A.D. And it was in that moment I all of a sudden realized, like, this is so much bigger than a sneaker.
He's like, this is really, really impressive. I'd love to be involved. And I said, okay, well, what's the next step?
Tom said that we needed to find a developer.
I was like, well, can't you do that?
Tom's just like, I'm the design side, like I'm gonna design this thing, you know, and then we need to find a developer to produce it, to develop it, to make it into a real living object.
Is there anyone here in Portland? He said, yeah. He messaged the founder of that and was like, hey, there's this new brand, they're in town, can you meet?
We turned up with Tom the following day, everyone looking a little bit bewildered and wondering who these lot from England are.
Did the whole pitch again, mission accomplished. 2 days in Portland, Tim and I flew back to the UK and we were like, oh shit, this is happening.
Ben is so confident when he's set on something like that it's gonna work, but I was worried. I've sat there, I've seen the numbers, I've heard the numbers grow in front of us. At one point I've wondered, like, is Ben mad? I was scared of like how much he was putting into this, but equally I was super excited and you know, buzzed that we were gonna be moving on from here.
There's this flow that happens over the coming weeks. Tom, he does these sketches on Post-it notes, and they're like really quick. Bear in mind, he's got my amazing design in his hand already.
Tom did make a joke, he's never ever had anyone turn up with a sketch of their own shoe before. So, fair play to him for accommodating us.
For so long, we had separated everything out into all these categories of this is running and this is training and this is lifestyle. And I don't think consumers were really looking at footwear that way anymore.
The position of the industry, even the biggest players in the industry, the position of them was like live to train, like huge, ripped guys and girls, like very serious. The training isn't the thing, it's the thing for the thing. So we flip that on its head internally and we talk about train to live.
It's this thing that you bring in to improve all these other aspects of your life.
Nowadays, like, everyone exercises for different reasons. You've got your pro athletes that exercise for their sport. You've got your CrossFitters that exercise specifically for a sport related to training. You've got your everyday people, whatever that is, you know that exercise and training makes you feel better and makes you enjoy your life like more for it.
How do you integrate all of these things aesthetically and come out with, in the end, something that was maybe not just desirable, but truly sought after?
6 to 8 weeks, we land on the design that we're going to go after. The design was tech-packed, and then it was ready to hand off to the development team.
I'm Jacob Lewis, and I am the footwear development director at R.A.D. Started working with Tom and Ben, basically Zoom calling every week because of COVID, and they were looking at me for project updates because I'm working with the factory side to iterate the projects, to work through a lot of the details on crafting the shoe.
We designed the shoe, we developed the shoe all through Zoom with our factory partner. It was fucking savage. It was so hard and it was so slow. But at the time, I had nothing to compare it to. And I was just going, oh, this seems perfectly normal. And they were like, no, Ben, this process here should have taken a week and it's taken us 8.
That was a moment where the entire project could easily have shut down. There was no more getting together, around a product and really looking at where we were with it. It was all in individual little pieces, each of us in our own homes. And somehow Ben kept that whole process in motion, no matter what. One of the interesting things about the V1, all the functional elements, as well as what makes it work so well aesthetically, is that it's all incredibly well integrated. We were able to make a softer, better cushioned midsole in here, but we were able to do that because of the TPU cage, the plastic cage that wrapped the outside, and it sealed that foam in and it gave it this extra little bounce, just a little bit of a different feel than you would get in any other trainer. And that TPU piece works so well with this nice, soft, comforting rand piece on the side, which also works to really support the heel and lock it in really well.
On the upper side of the shoe, we wanted to focus on breathability, the right mesh that balanced a performance mesh that was breathable but had an all-day aesthetic.
People now, with their lifestyle shoes, they don't want to be like a walking advert. The idea of debranding and all that has been done by other brands as well, but like that, for us, puts us straight away in the place of like a modern interpretation of footwear.
Every single element on here works with another. The webbing loops that you use to lock the foot in throughout the ice stay, they all run all the way down to the strobel line, and it really grabs the midfoot, gets you all completely locked in there. It's fantastic for plyometrics.
Box jumps, jump ropes, sled pushes need to be flexible, not too rigid, and that the back half was stable.
So there's like all of these integrated and nicely hidden little aspects that any CrossFit athlete would absolutely love, but at the same time, you just get this gorgeous, beautifully integrated silhouette.
We were only really up against 5 or 6 other shoes, but I was like, this is the best looking shoe in the market, so whatever we have that, you know.
We built up to getting a full wear test in.
We call it field testing, get it out in the world, get it into the actual environments, and have them do a list of movements to see how they perform.
We had athletes wear the shoe at the 2021 CrossFit Games, and it performed really well. They said they really liked the shoe.
Compared to most sneakers I've designed over time, it had fewer iterations based on, any sort of negative feedback from anybody than probably any other project I've ever worked on.
We went into commercialization at the end of summer 2021, and then it was all about how do we build to the launch of the V1.
Oh man, the launch of the R.A.D One, the whole company is riding on that one thing. And so I was incredibly nervous for myself, but I was nervous for Ben too, and the future of R.A.D.
All the dough from the gym sale had gone. I was like, oh fuck.
I knew like what he had sold his original gym for, and I knew that he put every single penny into establishing what the brand was, even to the extent he had a baby on the way, and he told me he had to go and start training some people so he could pay his mortgage. And I thought, what is this guy doing? Like, he's wild, he is mad.
I've got a big bill coming at the end of this month. It was for all of the development fees and the design fees. I might not be able to continue the project after this. Went to my trainer collection. You're sat here gathering dust. You're probably worth a bit. And just started eBaying them. eBay. And then I sold my watches. I had a few digital cameras. I had lenses. I had this Coors clock that was a 1 of 10 clock, and it was signed by Coors. I sold that for 15 grand. I managed to basically raise the money over a month from selling all of my things.
Again, the measure of the person and what it takes to succeed in such endeavors.
And I think that made me and everybody else that was working on the project really feel truly vested with him in every way. We were all willing to do whatever it was going to take.
Probably the best decision I've ever made.
I'd been testing the shoe, was really excited about it. Ben had said that he was launching in Miami. I'd said to him, oh, you know what, if you want any help, more than happy to come and help. About a week later, he said, I'm going to book you a plane ticket. Can you come on these days?
Holly is a ray of positivity. Even when shit hits the fan, she always sees the good side. She was actually the first member of my CrossFit gym.
Turned up on day one, and there was me and Ben's business partner's wife, and I got hooked. I was a proper accountant for about 15 years. Went and worked for Deloitte, a Big Four firm, and then I was working on the Rugby World Cup in 2015.
Dan Carter! What a kick!
But I decided that I wanted to be a CrossFit coach, and I actually started coaching at Ben's gym.
We put her through our coaches development program, and she would coach at the gym. She would take on sessions.
And I then decided that I wanted to do my own thing and open my own gym a few miles down the road.
I think she coached like every single class, which was just mad.
I hadn't had a holiday for like 2 years because I'd been so full into running the gym. A bit of sunshine in Miami would be great. Landed and it was pissing with rain, which was not what we were expecting. We got a call from the guys at WIT who also had a stall down on site, and they said, Ben, you might want to come down to site where your stock is because the water is rising. So we legged it around the corner. All of the R.A.D shoes were on pallets on the floor and the water was just slowly rising. Stacked them all up onto trestle tables, like covered them with tarpaulin, tied them in, and then got back to our hotel and hoped for the best.
We treated it like a surf shack. We had designed all sorts of sick stickers. We had some makeshift seating for people to try stuff on. Most importantly, we had lots of the R.A.D ones knocking about.
We had inlaid screens, we had like amazing graphics that Tim had done on these screens. Lots of sweeping went on.
We launched on the Thursday, and the Thursday was open to the general public. So there was loads of people in there. Probably spoke to 300-400 people that day. They would try the shoe on, lace it up, and they'd stand up and they'd be like, whoa, these are actually really comfortable. And that was something that really was a surprise in a way. I was like, what shoes are you wearing that aren't comfortable? On that day, Danielle was there and she was hanging out. 2019 games, there was a sprint event on the field. Danielle went up and she booted round the end bollard and she was absolutely jacked. And she had like this sleeve and I was like, this girl is fucking cool. 2021 games rolls around, there she is again. And this time she's got blue hair, she's all over everything. And then she did the double fingers up and I was like, holy shit, that's the athlete I want to sign. She is rad.
Ben shows me this athlete, Danielle, and he didn't have to say anything. She's it. Like, that's the physical manifestation of everything we're saying. She's an amazing athlete. She puts it out there. She's cool, she's experimental, she's expressive. She was just everything. And he was like, we need to get her.
Did some standard Instagram stalking and tried to figure out who her agent was. And it turned out to be Cooper Marsh.
I remember the first phone call I had with Ben, he was calling me from a literal closet.
I had this like little shoebox office at home, desk, a chair, and I could basically touch the door to the office behind me.
And he was British, so I'm like, here I am thinking Harry Potter type jokes, right?
Coop answers the phone and it's a shot up his nostrils. And I'm like, what the fuck? And he's working out. He's literally finishing his workout whilst taking this important business call. Picks me up, hey man, really sorry. And I was like, this guy's a jerk.
So the dude's calling me from under the stairs and he shows me his little black shoe.
I've got a prototype, boom, and pulled it out in front of him and he's like,
I'm like, cool man, I can't see the thing or touch it. Like, I'm just seeing this on the screen, but all right, yeah, it looks like you have a shoe.
How rude. Fair enough. He had no idea who I was and he thought I was just like messing around, yanking his chain.
He was persistent. He ended up showing up that October at Rogue and he came out to get drinks with us.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Ben like joined us going out. Cooper's like, hey, we have to take the time to like meet up with this guy. Like, let's just give him an hour of our time. And I just had no regard for like, maybe to show like a more proper, cleaner side of myself.
You know, Danielle's wild. She likes to blow off some steam, so she goes out and she gets dressed up for Halloween weekend in Austin. And, you know, we're running around Rainy Street, which is a total, you know, frat house and trashy place.
And I hadn't told them that I don't drink because that's like, people find that weird or they feel like I'm judging them or whatever. I don't care. Do what you want. I'd like get rounds in and then I would get like NA beers or like water and make it look like shots, you know, all that kind of shit.
He pretended to drink. He just like fit right in. I don't know, he was so chill. I don't quite remember how it ended, but I think it went well. I thought it was a good night. I definitely do remember like getting feisty with someone. I think I was with like my boyfriend at the time. I think I almost fought some girls whatever, he got to see the worst side of me.
But he just consistently, man, war of attrition. He just showed up over and over and over again.
And then from that point on, we had loads of back and forth. And he's like, what's your proposal? I went to Tim and I was like, Tim, we need to sign Danielle. Like, what are we gonna do?
And I can see she's wearing Nike, or Nike, should I say. So I'm thinking, we can't have her, you know? That can't happen.
We get Danielle and we sign Danielle, or we have no one. Like, they're the only two options. So this is really important. We need to build a deck for Danielle. She needs to have a logo, she needs to have a colorway, and we basically need to create a Danielle brand.
We made a silhouette of Danielle like this, and we were like, to us, you will be our Jordan. We knew that she would mean everything to our brand, so our approach to her was like, you're amazing, you're doing amazing things with who you're with, but you'll be everything to us. Are you up for it?
He went through kind of what it is that he envisioned for her brand, and then he came to this final slide and said, these are the athletes we're interested in signing.
It's just like pictures of me and like, I was like, oh my gosh, okay. He made it so clear why he thought I fit the brand so well and why they just like wanted me.
And he pretty much said, look, we either launch with you or we launch without you, but you're the one.
This is what we would want to sponsor you, and then we're gonna build your brand. We were in the negotiation window. She had to take whatever we presented back to her sponsor, which was Nike. I was like, oh, we're dead. We are fully dead here.
And it was such a long shot. Like, come from one of the biggest brands in the world to this brand that doesn't even yet have a shoe. It made no sense.
Nike came to play, they had a good offer.
They matched. It's a match. It's not a better than, it's a match. I've got to somehow meet with her in person again. I was in Houston, pulled a pair of shoes in Danielle's size, pulled a pair in my size, got on a plane, flew up to Vegas, and we did a training session.
I took him through a 40-minute EMOM. That was like terrible. This is maybe when I first learned too that he had like been on a games team, or I was like, oh, like, he's kind of fit. And so I was like, you know, took him through that gnarly EMOM.
Then he took Danielle and her boyfriend at the time's mom out to coffee.
It's just like so funny to think about. He was just like there with like my boyfriend and like his mom, and just had this like super like American fucking meal, right?
Dude, he worked for it.
I flew to see my buddies and basically waited and waited and heard nothing. New Year's Day, a text came in and it was from Danielle, and it just said,
I am fucking rad.
Oh, fuck. Danielle's in. We were umming and ahhing, and we were like, do we announce her next week when the product's live on the website, or do we do it now?
I think Cooper was like, yo, we should. Like, why not? This is a great place to do it. Ben's like, nah, I don't want, no. And I remember we had a photo shoot. I think the idea was thrown out, let's go do it in like Wynwood.
Sort of arts district of Miami. Put her in a R.A.D tee, and she was wearing the Sunny Lime shoe, and she stood in the middle of the road, popped her hip and did 2 fingers up.
This one.
We announced Danielle Brandon as fucking rad, and it just went crazy from there.
It was just all received so well, and I think like the collab too. Everybody was just like, yeah, like this works, this fits, this makes complete sense. And I think that was cool, because I thought R.A.D was really cool. And so that people associated me and thought it was a good fit, I was like, okay, sick.
We sold out all sizes over that weekend.
It's like almost people had been like waiting for something like that. Like they were like, oh my gosh, like finally, right? That was the first time I met everyone. I think it was overwhelming, because especially that was the first time I'd been around a whole bunch of like friggin' Brits and all these like crazy accents, right?
She just brought DB energy, and she was just on it all weekend. I think she worked probably harder than any of us.
We didn't have the website functioning in the UK. We'd only managed to get the US one functioning. We'd sold the shoes into Whip, and they were going to launch them. I was really nervous.
That was a nervous day. We were sat in our studio. Brad didn't have a studio. I didn't even know where Ben was. And I knew what time. I think it was an 11 a.m. drop, if I can remember correctly. And I'm sat there and it's like 7 minutes past 11. I'm thinking I'll get a phone call in about half an hour, like an update, see if anything's sold yet. And my phone starts ringing and I'm like, is everything okay?
This is crazy. It's like the fastest sellout ever. This is more than a Metcon, Fraser launch, etc., etc. And it's sold out.
That was amazing. And I turned around to everyone else and I was like, they've got the shoes, they've gone, they've sold, they've gone.
And then to see every one of them sell out immediately, I think just built this confidence in us that the thinking was right. You know, by the time we're on drop 3 and they're still selling out like that, it's like, we were right. This is it. This was the idea.
Because of what happened in the pandemic, all of the factories changed their payment terms. Anything you order, you have to pay for 100% in advance.
Back then, we didn't know what we were going to sell, and we were having to put orders in for like, you know, years in advance.
And so our units were naturally pretty low as well, but it really played into this like streetwear, skate, hype drop that I'd experienced from working at Bathing Ape from the sort of sneaker days. And that was kind of how it was for the first 18, 24 months. Every launch sold out on the day within like 10 minutes. It was mad. I always imagine if R.A.D was a person, how would it behave? How would it interact? What would it say? What would it do? And there was one launch, which I think is probably still one of my favorite launches. We teamed up with CrossFit South Brooklyn, which was a gym I visited in 2015. And I met David, and he is just one of the most amazing human beings on the planet.
So as a first collab, it wouldn't have been your natural idea. It wasn't like they had this humongous following and they were going to open the doors to the world. Like, it was all done for the right reasons because Ben had been there, trained there, loved it, and wanted to associate himself and his business to it.
We did the CrossFit South Brooklyn R.A.D One, and we put his skull and bones on the heel and we printed it on the midsole and did a translucent outsole. And it was R.A.D CFSBK on it. It was black upper with a gum bottom. Well, no shit, that's like the most popular colorway. It was like the fastest sellout of the year. And then people in the DMs were just brutal.
The vitriol that we got online afterwards was just immense.
I basically dropped a few C-bombs, and that was the end of me being on social media for R.A.D.
I'd never advise them against it. I think it's quite nice to let your personality shine through. I was running the gym full time and I got a call from Ben. Oh, I don't suppose you've got any capacity at the moment, have you? What do you mean capacity? I think I need somebody to just come and help out a bit with the finances at R.A.D.
I asked Holly if she could come and do 3 half days a week.
And very quickly, he was like, can you help a little bit more? Can you help a little bit more?
It went into like 3 days a week, and then it was 5 days a week.
I had handed the gym over to a very good friend and brilliant coach, and I was full on in R.A.D from then on.
And she is like the rock. She is the reason the company functions.
CrossFit Games 2022, a pinnacle event of the season within a sport that we're a significant part of. So you've got to show up.
I'd always had this idea of doing a van drop and it being in and out, kind of fast, quick.
Burst through the back doors type show up, and that's exactly what we did. We had like Danielle and Laura driving around in a van, no one knew it was them. And then they'll take the mask off and people will be like, no way, that's the superstars of this event.
I landed in Madison at 5 a.m. I was texting Ryan. I was like, Ryan, what's it like? He was like, there's already people in line. I was like, what? He was like, yeah, there's people who got here at 4 a.m. And I pulled up and there was this line that was just like the whole block and bent round. And everyone was just so kind, so complimentary to what we were doing. They just love like what the brand stands for. We've actually got a community here, this sub-community within the wider training community that is loving what we're doing. And I think that for me is like the most important thing that I always want to retain is connection with people.
We've had a couple of disastrous situations. The most memorable was in November of 22. It was a really cool campaign, like all outdoorsy female logger, like lumberjack.
Called Amy Jantz. The concept was take a work boot and turn it into our training shoe. Amy uses CrossFit to train for her job, and she goes out and helps the fire department when there's wildfires. She clears tree lines to stop the fires from spreading.
So we released these colourways, sold out straight away. Everyone was loving this one colourway Dove in particular.
About a week after the launch, we got an email into customer service, and it basically was like, hey, this has happened to my shoe, and the whole upper had a hole. The whole upper was just shredded.
Do you think it's something we need to worry about? Seems a bit strange, let's keep an eye on it.
And then another email came in, and another, and another, and another. Every single pair of Dove shoes had holes in them.
Ultimately found out that it had been re-dyed and reheated, which weakened the bond, the yards, so it made it much easier to burst. And no one had told us that this had been done on, the manufacturing side.
And so we had to recall all of the shoes and refund everything.
That was the big one. That was a problem. That was a bit of a mess. And I remember a lot of people having to get early access for a lot of new shoes. For the 2023 games, we were absolutely pushing this idea that it shouldn't be intimidating or macho or all the things that some of the training world can sometimes be. But you can still be competitive and still want to go for it and still have to be like ultimate performance. Your performance branding, it is still all about performance, and that is inspirational. So we were trying to find a metaphor for that speed and excitement.
We came up with the idea of this race track, a racing team, and that really inspired the colorways.
Let's use rally as a metaphor for the games, and let's get our athletes, key drivers in this space, create this whole world around what they're going to be doing and the elite peak of their performance.
Fitted the athletes out in overalls with racing badges on, set up like this R.A.D garage. They were being the cars that were being tuned to race.
I get to stand out, I get to be different. And this brand, this company gets to help me do that, and I get to help them do that. R.A.D brought that on. They're the first to do it in CrossFit,
Again, it really resonated with people. It was just like a fun way of viewing the competition. More than anyone will know for these athletes, this is everything to them. They are there to race and race hard.
2024 was really the first time that we had some sort of bricks and mortar store.
The big events now are sponsored by other footwear brands, and they don't want us there. So we decided to find a warehouse as close to the venue as possible.
I said, how near to the games are we close? And he sent a picture, and it was literally outside the front door.
What I wanted to create was the idea that we were in the desert.
We looked at festivals out in the desert, your Burning Man, stuff like that, and all of these visual references started to appear, and it started to get exciting.
It really enabled us to connect with thousands of people.
The community side of the business is everything, it's your people on the ground. It's like an opportunity to actually come together, opportunity to see and meet the people behind the business. It proves that we're here for it, we're part of it, we love it.
People used to participate in a sport and it was a hobby. These sports are becoming people's lifestyles and ultimately becoming their identities. And so therefore, intertwining social connection alongside sport or your passion makes total sense.
It's bigger than product. You could almost not have product, but you still have that community of people who like to exercise, who want to have fun more than anything.
And it's really facilitating people coming together. So we host sling and send competitions in gyms, bring people together for pizza, we bring people together for drinks, tacos, runs, whatever it is. Really, we want to encourage people to connect in real life. There's too much of this going on and not enough of this, speaking.
R.A.D brings me, me, fans, R.A.D. It's the thing that brings us together. I need R.A.D there to like make those connections with people. I don't know, and it's like a bonding thing. It gives people something to like bond over, and yeah, I like, couldn't do it only myself.
You know, the product is one thing, but I think our marketing is another thing, right? How we put this brand out into the world. I think that has a huge impact with how people are learning and engaging with the brand, and we have a very, frankly, open and honest kind of approach to how we do things and kind of raw, and I think people appreciate that. It's not as glossy or political as some others.
In all of the social content we try to create, we always think, how can we entertain or how can we engage someone on an emotional level?
We have so much fun, you know. I love it when we pull out some unexpected bit of kit. Recently we were doing some stuff with like 3D characters and scanning the athletes' rave culture and rave scenes, and how like we bring some of that into this content. Like, I've always believed that like people would buy into that sort of stuff, but it wasn't until like it's worked for R.A.D that like there's been proof of the pudding.
We are all about stimulating the mind and the connection with other people.
What makes me the most proud about this shoe is the way this entire small team came together to make every aspect of this shoe right. You know, being a small brand or a startup, it's really difficult to reach the consumer at the heart of what they want, to have conversations with them that are really meaningful and give you the feedback you need to design something better. But somehow, Jacob and Ben, myself, Tim, everybody pulled together and made something happen in a circumstance that was nearly impossible. I think this shoe will always stand as the greatest example of how you can bring performance and lifestyle together into something meaningful. At the same time, there were always aspects from a performance standpoint that we wanted to improve, and I think that's really where the V2 comes in.